seminar later and I don't have it. Okay, so today's agenda, I got recording on. We're going to go over office considerations, what you need to consider at your office side of things, and then what you need to consider at your home side. So we're going to cover both office and home. And then I'm going to talk about some cloud solutions that are actually pretty easy to implement and might be something you want to consider to help you augment what you're currently doing in your office, since if everyone's going to be working from home, you will find cloud solutions to be probably a more efficient way to do that. And then also security considerations. I have done a lot of different security webinars in the past, and I will talk about the highlight of the main things you need to be doing. Also the checklist that I put together that I'm going to share has a lot of suggestions for security in there as well. So let's talk about office considerations. We're going to actually dive into each one of these numbers specifically. So we're going to go over your office internet speed, whether you're using a personal computer or a work computer. We're going to talk about your firewall VPN setup, application requirements, and then phone system options. So we're going to go through each one of these. Again, you don't have to try to keep up with writing this all down. I'll be happy to send you a PDF for the presentation as well, so you have all this as well. Then we're going to get into home considerations. Your home, looking at the home side of things. My thoughts on home printing. It's really more my professional opinion. How to use or what you should be doing for any file sharing sites, and then what you can be doing for, like we're doing today, doing Zoom or doing some kind of sharing product, and we'll talk about that. And I've got some good news on what's available from Microsoft and Google on that as well. And then endpoint security, because it may be last, but it's probably the most important. So first thing you should do is test your office speed. The reason I'm recommending this is if you aren't testing your office speed, there's a very good chance you're not getting what you're paying for. I just tested a client the other day, and they're paying for a 400 meg connection from Spectrum, and they're only getting about 220 meg down. Another client thought they were paying on their bill. It said 15 meg DSL connection. They're getting 1.5 on the DSL. So here's an example of ours. This is what I would expect to see. I ran a speed test for us. We have a fiber 200 meg connection, and I did this during the day while we're busy using it. So that seemed like a reasonable number. We're getting about 186 down and 193 up. And that was during our normal traffic load. So when you're doing the testing, you may not see the exact number, and that's okay because people are busy using it, but run speedtest.net and make sure you're getting what you're paying for. I would actually recommend, if you can, increase it. Spectrum may be a little crazy busy trying to do that right now, but I get yourself in the queue. We don't know how long this thing's going to last. We don't know how long we're going to be doing this work from home. It can become the new norm. I don't know. It could be forever how long it's going to last. You may find you want a better internet connection. So I would be, if it's first come, first serve, then I'd be get your request in there for a faster speed. But make sure you're at least getting what you're paying for. That's really the point here. If you're not sure, look on your bill. Obviously, I have the speed test here, but your bill should show you what you're paying for. If not, you may have to call them and find out. But I would really recommend getting as much bandwidth as possible. This upload speed, when you're using cable, now ours is fiber, so you can see the speeds are equal, or in this case, faster for the up speed. If you have cable, your up speed is slower than your down speed. Well, let me tell you that up speed becomes critically important when your people are working from home. You're no longer in your office clicking, browsing, and downloading quickly. Now you're home clicking and asking your office computer to send data back to you. So your up speed becomes the most critical number when you're working from home. So I just want to repeat that. The fastest up speed you can get. If you're on cable, unfortunately, it's not as fast up as it is down. Fiber is symmetric and gives you the same speed in both directions. Ordering a fiber connection today, good luck. You're talking 120 plus days for installs. So if you're not already on fiber, you're not going to get that. If you are on fiber, you could easily increase your speed, and it's a very simple process for them to dial up your speed. So considering productivity of your employees, it would be a very, very low cost solution. You may say, well, geez, I'm going to double it. And it's going to go to $8.99 a month from $5.99 a month. Believe me, that $300 more a month is going to really impact your productivity for your remote work from home users. Personal computer or work computer, Windows Home or Windows Pro. A home computer will not join a work domain. If your company has a domain, Windows Home is not supported. Can you use a Windows Home computer? Absolutely. Should you take your computer home? We don't recommend that. Some people have talked about, can I just bring my computer from my office home? If you're going to do that, where are you going to work from? You're going to work on the computer from home and accessing the data. We'll talk about that in a minute, and we'll talk that in a few more slides, but trying to, the most ideal approach is for you to be using a home computer, accessing the work computer, so you're processing and doing your workload in the office as if you're sitting at your desk, just controlling your computer from your house. If you move that work computer home, now you're trying to connect to the office network, and you're trying to run programs over that much, much slower connection, because your office connection is most likely gigabit. Most offices are now at minimum 100 meg, and in most cases gigabit. So if you're working from home on your computer you brought from work and you don't have a machine to connect to, that's going to be an issue. Large companies have servers that the users can access. They use remote desktop servers or RDP servers. They might use Citrix servers. Citrix is obviously a great solution. Any of those solutions allow you to work from home remotely on the server and not need your office computer. So if you are in an environment like that, then that's probably an exception, and you could bring your computer from work to your house to connect to the server. If you have specific questions about your environment, I'd be happy to help you navigate that. And then I put in bold, install corporate endpoint protection, your antivirus, whatever your endpoint protection is you're using at work, make sure that's on the home computer. But we'll talk more about some of these topics as well as we move along. Your firewall VPN setup of your office. Can your firewall support VPN? Do you need to upgrade? There's a very good chance that your firewall is going to not perform well as you start having people working from home. Why? Because a VPN is a software function trying to run on your firewall. I mean, what I mean to say is, so it's clear, is that secure connection, that connection from your home to the office, this virtual private network that we're setting up, does encryption. Well, the firewall has to process all that traffic. So now, instead of having a few people working from home, now you've got a dozen or 2 dozen. That firewall will really bog down and slow down if it's not a strong enough unit. So there's a very high probability that you can send your people home, give them a VPN license, and then they're all complaining about really poor performance. And that poor performance may not even be your Spectrum connection. It actually might be your firewall. So please look at your firewall, have us look at your firewall, but you got to realize that you're going to have a situation where your firewall may not be able to handle the workload. You can add licenses to your firewall. They are concurrent licenses. All the companies out there, Cisco, SonicWall, pretty much do concurrent licenses, meaning you can buy 10 licenses and you can share them amongst 20 employees. That's an important distinction. What I'm saying is you don't have to buy 20 licenses just because you have 20 employees. You have to match how many are working at the same time. So if your employees working at different shifts, or if some people don't need to remote in all the time and people can get connected, disconnect, that type of thing, you could save yourself some money. You could not have to necessarily buy the exact number of licenses to match the number of employees. So we're concurrent licenses versus named licenses. So that's something to pay attention. SSL VPN, it works with all computers. What I mean by that is you have people with Apple, Macintosh computers, An SSL VPN will support them. If you have to use a software client that you have to install, then you run into situations where there's not a client for a Mac, or possibly for you run into more support issues of having to install software on the local computer at home. So you can avoid having to install software on that home computer by using an SSL VPN. Do not try to run QuickBooks or other apps over the VPN. Do not try to open up QuickBooks locally and access the QuickBooks file on the Office server over VPN. It's not supported by QuickBooks. Many of the other companies won't support that. Very high probability to corrupt your database. It does not work over that wide area network. It's too slow. So you really need to do that remote connection, the remote desktop connection, and I'll talk about software options for that as well. The other thing I'd like to point out, because we get questions on this all the time, is when you come into your office in the morning and you log into your computer, the majority of the time when you boot up, you see all your map drives, all your letter drives and your connections to the server. You see all those drive letters, they're green and you can access them. When you work from home, that does not happen. And it's something to make your users aware of, because they'll be frustrated saying, well, I can't get to the drive. It's a red X. I don't have access to it. That's not necessarily the case. What happens is when you connect to the VPN, it doesn't remap those drives automatically. You have to individually go to them, and as you open them, it will reestablish the connection to that map drive. So I just want to point that out, because that's a common question, concern, support issue that comes along. So if you know ahead of time, hey, you're not going to see, you're going to get these red X's on the map drive, that's okay. If you truly are connected on your VPN's up and green and connected, then when you go to connect to that drive, it will work and it will open. It might be slow. It might have to be waiting while it's building the list of the files and everything and bringing that over the internet to your home computer, but it does work. Also, you can use the VPN to print in the office and access files. So that's why we talk about VPN. So when you're at home, you could connect and you could still print to an office computer, an office printer, multifunction printer, that type of thing. Obviously, that's a little odd if you can't get to the document, but at the same time, if you are going to try to print from home, we're going to talk about that in a few slides, and I'll explain the ins and outs of printing from home. Personally, I think printing should be one of your policies that you try to forego and get people not to print remotely. I think it'd be better if you avoided it, and I'll explain why in a few slides. Application requirements. Does your app run on an internal server? If it does it work over VPN? There's very good chance it really needs to be a VPN RDP or remote desktop combination to access and run that app. Can you move your application to Azure or AWS, Amazon's cloud? If you can move the application, we can literally spin up an Azure server within hours and get your QuickBooks or an application running in the cloud, and move a company to the cloud pretty quickly, the way Microsoft's doing this and prioritization of this kind of situation. So the other option is you can build an RDP gateway or terminal server in your office. So if you have server capacity, excess server capacity, we can set up a terminal server to give your people remote access. So if your application does not like working over VPN, then we can come up with some alternatives to get your application working either in the cloud or on a terminal server in your office. Remember, if you're having a terminal server in your office, then we got to make sure we have the proper bandwidth for people to access it. All these things aren't, I make them sound hard, and yes, they take some effort, but they aren't really difficult for us to do. We've been doing this for a lot of time, for a lot of years, for a lot of clients. So we can get you moved over there. It may be something you've thought about doing in the past and haven't done. Now may be the time to think about moving to the cloud some of your applications. Use the web version of Office apps. A lot of people aren't aware, but you can log into office.com and use your company email address. If your company is licensed for Office 365, then you can actually use the app's browser version. That's actually a good way to do it. If you're using Google or G Suite, you can do the same. You know, you're already used to doing that. But a lot of people aren't aware that their Microsoft Office apps are all available on web, and the web version is included with all subscriptions. It's the desktop version that you may or may not be licensed for. And do not try to run some apps over the internet like CAD, graphics design, things of that sort. Do not try to do those without having a setup that was specifically designed for that. There literally are capabilities of running CAD in the cloud, and that may be counterintuitive, but the way they do that is we build a virtual server or virtual machine or workstation in the cloud that's actually got GPU, that's got graphic processing power built in the cloud, and all it has to send to your screen is the screen changes. So it can be very efficient and work in the cloud, and you actually can do design and CAD and graphics work in the cloud on properly configured workstation in the cloud or server in the cloud. But again, trying to run the application or opening up the file or the database over the internet, running the app over the internet that way is not efficient, does not work well. Phone system options. Does your phone system support VoIP? If it doesn't, you can look at a VoIP system, and we're working with companies like RingCentral that can get you up and running rapidly in the cloud. We can spin up a cloud VoIP solution very fast, and then we can do call forwarding. So you may not be able to port phone numbers right away, but we can do a lot of things with call forwarding, and you can get your oh, we never fixed that typo. Our cell phone. No, that's a C, not a S. You know, you could set up call forwarding to your cellular phone, and we can also move your fax number to a virtual fax. So if you're not already getting your faxes in virtually via email as a PDF, we can reconfigure a multifunction unit to do that, or we can actually port your fax number to a virtual number very easily and get you working where your faxes come in and they come via email. Many of the newer VoIP phone systems support a mobile app. Many clients don't realize it, that their system has it. An example, Allworks has a mobile app. If you have an Allworks phone system, you can instantly add the mobile app, and you can be making and placing phone calls from your cellular phone using the mobile app through your business network. What's that mean? When you call a customer, they see your company phone number. They want to call you back. Your mobile app is twinned to your desktop phone. So if they call your extension, it rings on your mobile app. So you can move a lot of even your phone systems to mobile apps. All the new cloud systems support that, but a lot of premise-based systems like the Allworks also support mobile apps. So if you're not sure about that, again, check with your vendor. VoIP phones can be taken home and reconfigured. I wouldn't recommend taking them back and forth because then you're reconfiguring. But if you have a VoIP phone, you could take it home. It could get configured, and you could then use your desk set at home over your internet connection. And of course, moving to the cloud is always an option, and you'll get temporary numbers immediately. So what happens there is people say, well, what about my phone numbers, all those kind of things. Well, your main phone numbers can all get call forwarded, can get transferred that way, so you don't have to worry about the delay for porting. But meanwhile, you'll get all new temporary numbers with a cloud solution if you decide to go that route. All right, now let's talk about the home side of things. Your home internet speed is just as important as well. Call and check Spectrum. There was a point because everyone thought that Spectrum was, Charter were being nice and just giving us faster internet connection. It's actually because they lost a lawsuit with New York State Attorney General. So they weren't being altruistic and offering us all these faster connections. They actually were giving us 100 meg or 200 meg connections because they were forced to, because they for so long not giving us the speeds that we were supposed to be paying for. So check your speed at home, just like I suggested checking it at the office. If you are in a rural area and your cell phone reception is better than your DSL or your internet connection, then you might want to consider using your cell phone or what's called a MiFi, basically a mobile Wi-Fi access point to access the internet. 4G is much faster. 5G is not really in the rural area yet. 5G is way faster if you have a potential for that. And now Greenlight, if you have Greenlight as an option, I wouldn't hesitate to be considered switching there. I will tell you that all these companies are being inundated with requests for upgrading. There's people's speeds are getting services installed. And yes, I got a question. I will be sharing a copy of the slides for you. I'll send out a PDF. We'll get that out to you as soon as we're done the webinar. Okay. So check your internet speed at home. Check your bill, make sure you're getting what you should, and maybe consider increasing that as well. I would limit home printing. I think printing at home is a security issue. Personally, I don't like it. It's problematic. Are you going to have to supply your employees with ink and paper? Are they going to expect reimbursement for using their own personal ink and paper? I think it's a slippery slope. I would just avoid it and not recommend it. Printing pass-through is not reliable. Printing over an RDP connection, it's hit or miss. Most of the home printers aren't supported by the servers, or there aren't the proper drivers. There's other issues. I think the easiest thing to do is, if you really needed to print something home, is email yourself the document or transfer the file home to the local computer and then print it locally. But my question comes back to is, do you really want people doing that? And then what about the cost of all that ink and toner and paper and all that? Who's going to be responsible for that? We'll talk about encrypted emails, but that's one of the things you should be considering. If you are emailing back and forth more with employees from home to work, you might really want to think about using encryption that is available from all the mail providers. File sharing sites. So I would disallow use of any of the personal ones. Dropbox, G Drive, Box, other free ones, don't use them. You really need to be using the business versions. Why? The business versions are the ones that have the backup capability built in. They have encryption capability. They have versioning. They're much safer to use. They are compliant with HIPAA and other regulatory laws. So only use the paid versions. The free versions really do not cover you. Free Gmail is not HIPAA compliant. Paid Gmail is compliant. So you need to be aware of what you're using and try to get everyone using the same thing. Personally, I think just using G Suite and Google Drive or OneDrive are the two to use. Dropbox for business. Dropbox has done a lot of work with Microsoft and now has integrated themselves directly into Office 365. Some of the other companies have as well. Citrix ShareFile is another one that's a paid service. Those are all very good solutions for sharing documents. And great news is the companies are really beefing up their offerings for all of this, and we'll talk about how they're including some of their group sharing tools. We'll talk about that in a minute. No personal file sharing sites should be allowed. Paid versions will have the encryption security, and use intranet. If you have Office 365, you have a SharePoint server you may not even realize, but Microsoft gave you one. And now you can have nice document libraries online and shared calendars and all kinds of nice things that you can be doing with your clients. If you're already using G Suite, you may be familiar with what Google does in that area, similar things. But a lot of people don't realize that their Office 365 subscription came with SharePoint and came with a SharePoint site, and you literally have an internal intranet, internal website that you can be using for your employees, and you can putting notices on there and documents and sharing on there. So highly recommend that. And then you can see I'm repeating myself here about using encrypted emails. I really recommend that you, if you're not familiar with how to do that, you learn and get your people doing that for sending documents back and forth. Teams, Skype, Zoom, WebEx. Teams is free from Microsoft right now. They're giving it away if you don't have it, and it's included with Office 365. So the promotion right now is Teams is for free. Google is giving away Hangouts for free. So this is really good news for small businesses, and both of those tools are a way to communicate and work together and collaborate together. When you start using Office 365 in the cloud and you're using Teams, you actually can work and share on documents and collaborate together, and you can actually use your built-in camera, microphone in your computer, in your laptop, and you can be communicating. You also can get a headset. I have a lot more information in the in my checklist that I'm giving you that talks about all those options and features. So you can use both those tools for including for sharing documents, collaborating together, and then using meetings and conferences. I do want to warn you that using a phone and phone line and conference calling is not a free piece. That's typically for a paid version. The free version allows you to do it through the computer. If you need to want to call in for a conference call, then you can use freeconferencecallhd.com, which is a great service that I've used in the past. It's easy to set up an account. That's freeconferencecallhd for highdev.com. You basically call a number and you can set up a conference call and do that. All of these will allow you to do conferencing and video conferencing if you want over the internet. But when you add the voice component, that's typically a paid service, and that doesn't matter what company it is. What I'm saying is when you're saying we're offering a phone number to dial in, that's different. So it's not expensive. I just want you to be aware of what comes with the free stuff versus the paid versions. Okay, endpoint security. If you can, joining the domain for group policy is the best security. So if you're giving someone a work computer and they're taking it home, it probably is joined to your domain. If it's a home version of Windows, then it's not going to join your domain and you won't get that level of security. Remember, your network is now vulnerable to that home computer. That home computer, if it's connecting to your office over a VPN, it has the ability to infect or corrupt your office network. So having ESET or WebRoot or Bitdefender running on that home computer should be provided by the company, should be something that you consider getting. You need to protect that machine at home. I would also think that you would probably want to co-opt that machine temporarily. If the person wants to use their home computer, then I think you would probably want to say, okay, we'll do this. However, we're going to have to maintain it just like we maintain an office computer. That means we have to patch it, update it, and lock it down and make it more secure. If you're not familiar with multi-factor or two-factor authentication, programs like Duo, Authy, Google Authenticator, now's the time to get up to speed on multi-factor authentication and enable it for your access to your Office and your access to your Office 365 or your Gmail. All the web companies are pretty much supporting multi-factor. Many apps are supporting multi-factor. So all of our systems here at Just Solutions are multi-factor now, meaning you have to not only put in your username and password, you're going to get a code on your phone that then you type in to validate that you are who you say you are in order to get access to that application, that whether it's a website, email, or server. VPNs can be configured to use multi-factor as well. That can be trickier. It's a lot easier if you're using SSL VPN, but if you are using a client-based VPN, that's a little bit more difficult. If you're curious what I'm talking about multi-factor, many of you are already been experienced or exposed to that when you've worked with your bank and the bank sends you a text to your phone and then gives you a code that you have to type in. That's multi-factor. If you get an email sent to you with a code that you have to put in the website, that is also multi-factor. The problem with email verification is if someone's already tapped your email, then, you know, or if they've cracked your email or in your email, then that multi-factor coming to your email isn't as secure as a multi-factor coming to your phone, which you have to have in your possession, or an RSA token key that you have, one of those little fobs with that changing number that changes every 30 seconds. That's what those little fobs are. Those are access codes that change, and that's a multi-factor. That's a company like RSA offers that kind of service. Again, those are all very important ways to help protect the endpoint. Cloud solutions. A lot of people don't realize, but Office 365 G Suite, it's about $12 a month per user. Some lower, some higher. There's lots of options, but I wanted to give you the average because a lot of people think Office 365 is more money than Google, and that's not the case. Google and Microsoft are pretty much neck and neck in the pricing. What's a cloud VoIP hosted system? I've seen them as low as $24.99, sometimes a little lower, all the way up to $39.99 with lots of other apps and options. And the other thing is you can even get a phone or a handset with it. So depending upon the service, they'll even ship you a phone that you can plug in at home and use with the cloud hosted solution. You don't have to worry about losing your voicemail. Your voicemail gets emailed to you. You can transfer your cell phone. You can call forward your main number to a cloud solution, and then you don't have to worry about auto attendant. There's a lot of things that can help in a cloud VoIP solution. QuickBooks is available as a hosted. There's QuickBooks Online. That's not the same as QuickBooks hosted. QuickBooks Online is a different version of QuickBooks. It's browser-based. It's not as fast, friendly, or easy to use in the sense of the multiple windows. I mean, I guess it is easy to use, but what I'm saying is it's people that have used QuickBooks Desktop for a long time tend not to be very happy with the online version. What I'm talking about here is QuickBooks hosted. This is where you actually run QuickBooks in the cloud. It runs very efficient on the cloud. Like I said, it doesn't work well over a VPN, but it works fantastic when it's in a cloud environment. Azure Cloud is an easy way to move your servers to the cloud. They actually have migration tools to do that. And then I listed Teams. Slack is another sharing collaborative tool out there, slack.com. It's a neat product. Join.me is a free video conferencing product you can use. You may have heard of LogMeIn, Go to My PC, Remote PC, or TeamViewer. Those are all ways to remote access your office computer, not using a VPN. So if you want to have software on your office computer, you can install one of those 4 programs on your office computer, and then you can remote in over those. Those can be less secure if you're not using strong passwords or multi-factor. I'm not going to necessarily say that's better or worse than a VPN. It's all based on the configuration. It's all based on the security, but those are really good ways to do remote access. We use a different tool called ConnectWise Control or Screen Connect to remote and support our customers. We use multi-factor authentication in order to get into that and then connect to your machine. VoIP, some of the companies we like to work with are Nextiva, RingCentral, Star2Star, Citricom. They're all VoIP hosted cloud solutions that have proven to work well, high quality, and great companies to work with, and it's all browser web-based type solutions that you can use. Security solutions. I would use paid versions of any hosted software. The free versions typically do not have the security you're looking for. I would start to use SSL or encryption on your machines. If you have laptops, I would encrypt the hard drives. I would encrypt your thumb drives. Start thinking about using encryption. If a laptop gets stolen, you don't want there to be company data on that. Especially you have to deal with any financial or regulatory or compliance issues. You don't want to be that person that has a machine with patient data or PII information that gets stolen. So I really, again, encryption. That's why the ransomware is such a big deal, is because encryption is so good that you have to pay to get to get it decrypted. So that's why the people out there that are trying to extort money use encryption as a way to steal your information. They never take it; they just encrypt it, and you have to pay to get the key back to get your data back. So encrypting your data is a way to protect your data from someone else. Use two-factor or multi-factor to secure your VPN or your Office apps. Change your passwords to a complex format. When's the last time you changed a password? Move to a passphrase. Get your people to update their passwords to something more complicated. Use a program like LastPass to help password management and help generate more secure passwords. You can force policies on remote workstations if you're doing the administration, if you're joining domain, so you can lock down things and make things more secure. I would eliminate all admin rights for all users. all users, no one should be logging in and working as an admin, even the admin. They should be working in the normal account. And when they need to go to admin rights, then you would escalate your privilege for that purpose. But you don't want the standard account for anybody to be an admin rights. Unfortunately, recently, we had a client that the password of the CEO got hacked, and they got into their computer and they were getting their email, and they actually were able to get access because the CEO had admin rights. They were able to get access to all their servers and all their networks. Really bad situation, really a mess. So eliminate admin rights for all. Best thing you can do. We have a great tool now that we're using called Auto Elevate that eliminates admin rights, but allows us to, when needed, elevate someone to do an admin. But everything is always, there's the checks and balances. Now that you're working from home and you have all these people working from home, is the best time to add SIM and SOC monitoring for your firewall. You want to know who's trying to bang on that door and who's trying to get in. You want to make sure it's your employees only. If you're not logging and monitoring your firewall using a SIM-SOC solution, shame on you. It is the absolute most important thing you can do to protect your network today. We have been promoting this for quite some time. We use it here, and you will be blown away at how many times you see hackers trying to get into your network. Now you want to know who's coming in. So you want to see when your employees are coming in and coming out. You want to log that. You want to track that. This is the way to do that, is add the SIM and SOC monitoring for your firewall. Highly recommended for everybody. Well, I just cruised through a lot of material here, and I want to just finish on how we can help. One of the things we can do is help you with your home support. We have two different plans for JSI helping the home user. We have our JSI Guardian PC, and we have our Pro. The Pro is for a business service, or the Guardian PC is for home service. You can see a couple differences of what's supported or what's included in the home or the business version. But the idea is we extend the protection and security that you are used to having in your office computer. We're extending that to your home computer, including backing up that home computer using Carbonite. So now we're even making sure that laptop at home is being backed up, even though we want people saving their files on the server, even though we don't want them saving things local. We know what happens. So this way we can back up the home computer and make sure that's being backed up. We can patch, update, and monitor that. We can support your VPN, help you configure that when you run into issues. And we can put on all our endpoint security. We use a lot more than just antivirus today. We use Huntress for malware hunting. We put Third Wall in there for policies and procedures. We use LastPass for password management, Zorus with web filtering, and Auto Elevate for the administrative controls and lockdown. So a lot of new features have been added to JSI Guardian. We've had this service now for a couple years. We have quite a few hundred people using this service, both residential home users and obviously for business as well. We think it's a great idea. So we'll send you information on that. There's a website you can go to. I'm going to open up to questions and answers. And let's see. Yes, you can get copies of the slide. What is the difference between SharePoint and OneDrive? That's a good question. OneDrive is actually is built into SharePoint. Microsoft is having a problem getting people to opt in and start using SharePoint. So they came up with this program called OneDrive and gave it to everyone. And OneDrive really is based on SharePoint technology, and it's an easy front end to SharePoint. So they're actually doing the same thing. And basically it's giving you access to files in the cloud, having the structure and the security to be able to create folders and permissions for people. And OneDrive is a program you install locally that accesses SharePoint. SharePoint also looks the same data set, and you can build apps in SharePoint. You can do a lot more things in SharePoint from a corporate administrative view. So OneDrive is really a subset of SharePoint. They use a lot of similar technology. It allows you for synchronizing documents. So think about having your document in your office, in the cloud, and at home. Wherever you go, you get access to that document. It's always in sync. It keeps versions of the documents, It allows you automatic backups. So now when you're in Word or Excel, there's a little slide switch at the top that says autosave. Now your document is automatically being backed up, so you don't have to worry about losing anything. So it's a great combination, great tool. So yeah, SharePoint has been around for a long time. They came out with OneDrive to compete with Google's G Drive. And that's taken off. They're giving you pretty much like about a terabyte on the business version of storage, which is plenty of storage for sharing files with OneDrive. Slack versus Team. That's a personal thing. Slack is an interesting tool, but Team does everything Slack does. So which one to use, I don't know. That really comes down to a corporate position. Personally, I think now that they're giving Teams away, and it's built right in. Remember, Teams was an evolution of Skype. Microsoft bought Skype quite a few years back. They evolved it to create out with Skype for Business. Now they're involving Skype into Teams. So it's all based on the Skype technology. So it's actually pretty fast and efficient. But I have used Slack with some groups as well. Again, it's just a way to do file sharing, chatting, having conversation control, question answers, that kind of thing. So Slack versus Teams, that's a tough one. I really think that you can do pretty much the same things in both. There may be some articles that get into more technical comparisons between the two, but functionality-wise, they're very similar. Yeah, we will be making the recording of this available. I think at the end of the seminar, when we close it out, it takes a little bit, then Zoom packages up the recording, and then we can make it available via a link for you. So we're happy to do that. Any other questions? I really do want to share out the checklist to you. That checklist is a lot more detailed, gives you some other things to look for and to think about. And then, like I said, I also have that policy for work from home that is a generic policy that you could look at using or adapting. So please email me. How are you going to email me? Well, here's my information, and you're welcome to email me, connect to me on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to help you with any specific questions you might have. So that wraps it up for me. If there are any more questions, I'll be happy to answer those. Otherwise, I look forward to talking to any or all of you. If you need any help, we're here for you. Happy to help you with any questions specific to your environment or your situation. And thank you very much for attending.